which is our 758.
All right.
And then Brenda Wynn is here. Brenda's would actually be quicker when I take hers first. That's BL 2013-488 for the lease. Yeah.
488. Okay.
Those are the two elected officials.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. How's everyone doing this afternoon? We're going to call the meeting of the Budget and Finance Committee to order. Before we begin with the agenda items, I would like to recognize Council Lady Berkeley Allen.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I would like to introduce Manon Le Breton. She is visiting from Nashville's French sister city, of Caen, and she will be interning in the mayor's office for this upcoming month. So I'm showing her all the great things we do in our government, and would appreciate y'all. Thank you. And if you speak slowly today, she'll understand you very well.
Right. Well, thank you for joining us. We're happy to have you. We're going to take a couple of items on the agenda out of order. The first item we'll take up is BL 2013-488. Sponsors are McGuire and Matthews, and this approves a lease agreement between the Metropolitan Government and Grace's Plaza Limited for the lease of space at 4005 Hillsborough Pike for the use by the county clerk. Been properly, and the county clerk is here. That's why we're taking this out of order. It's been properly moved. Do I have a second? And seconded. Any discussion? Councilman Garrett.
Mr. Chairman, I just always like to recognize former representatives who they are. The Honorable Janice Santani is here as well.
She is. Thank you for joining us. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Bill passes. Now we will take RS 2013-758. The Sheriff Hall is here. The sponsor is Matthews, and this authorizes the Department of Law to settle the lawsuit brought by Curtis Dressman against the Metropolitan Government and Lieutenant Guides of the Sheriff's Department for the amount of $530,000. Been properly moved and seconded. Councilman Garrett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Since this is such a large amount, I would think that either administration or Saul or somebody might ought to just give a little explanation on this, just for the public's sake.
Okay, Sheriff, would you like to do that? Would like me to do that?
Why don't we both try?
Okay.
Yeah, I'll do. You guys know I've been down there for a long time, and I think the situations around this case was, in a lot of ways, a perfect storm. A lot of factors played into it. The summary is this: that you had two individuals that were arrested on the same night. One individual was arrested for public intoxication. He was placed in what you and I would refer to as a holding cell. About 10 years ago, we had what you and I would call the state-of-the-art booking design. We still have it. But what that is an open booking room. It would look just like this room, very open. And then you have holding cells for those folks who may or may not need to be in an open setting. This holding cell that was designed 10 years ago with this open, design in mind, was built with soundproofing. As you can imagine, if you're removing a disruptive person, you don't want to disrupt everybody else. After the design of this location, we then were faced with a federal mandate. It gets a lot of alphabet here, but it's called PREA, Prison Rape Elimination Act, which requires us to, for privacy purposes, to eliminate people from visually being able to see into holding cells at the level we would need to see this one. And so you have a man placed in a holding cell because of the intoxication. A little later in the night, you have a second individual arrested for similar charges who was also placed not in the open area but in this holding cell. I've been down there a long time. I've never seen such a violent act in 7 minutes. We have virtually this entire thing on video. There was no one disciplined. Usually a question people are going to ask, because none of our officers or staff violated our policies. I mean, there were things that we could have, should have, would have done better. The information handed off between police and sheriff may not have given us indications of the violent nature of one of the individuals, the second one. You'd have hoped we'd have been able to see better without the tent having to be placed over the glass. The soundproofing prevented us from being able to hear everything we would want to hear, maybe to give us indication. And Mr. Dressman was severely attacked. And I don't take pride in standing up here. I think you should know that these are exceptionally rare. Our staff prevent many, many, many things that the good news is that never make it to this level. But in conversations for many months now with Metro Legal, we clearly believe from the Sheriff's Office standpoint that this was an event that the individual here needs to be compensated.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilman Garrett. Councilman Tiger.
Thank you. Saul, why is the government totally responsible for this settlement? Why don't we go after the guy who beat up the other person?
Yeah, I think that we could possibly have a right against that other person. That person most likely is judgment proof, and I think the other thing to understand is that person is also deceased at this point in time. And so the question is going to come down to whether or not Metro has any liability. And it's one of those cases that does kind of get you, because it wasn't a case where somebody really went out of their way or really did something stupid to harm another individual. Yeah, if you look at the totality of the circumstances, given the soundproofing, given that the perpetrator was somebody who was exhibiting violent behavior, given that this was a kid who was visiting Nashville and got a little too inebriated one evening and got put in the holding cell, and given that we couldn't see in because we put the blackout, it looked like, I put it at maybe a 20% chance that we'd walk out with zero. Now, in these kind of cases, one of the things that really factors in here is if we lose $1, we lose attorney's fees. That's how these the law, as you all know from cases we talked about in the past. And so to date, there were about 500 hours already of legal bills. We figured another around 300 hours to go all the way through trial, because there's some appellate issues. So we just felt we looked at it really from a risk avoidance standpoint. If we were really, really lucky, maybe 35 to 40% chance of getting out at around 450 to 500. But we ended up doing, this is really Kelly Oliver and the sheriff, I think, did a really good job at this settlement. It's not a happy thing to talk about, but we basically doubled the medicals to date. He's going to have future medicals too. I mean, he's really badly hurt. And we did the attorney's fee. That's basically how we ended up with the settlement. So I look at it really from a risk avoidance standpoint. Just hard to believe that we'd walk out with a zero on this one. Just, if we're lucky, it would just be the medicals plus attorney's fees, which almost equal to $500,000. Not quite, but.
Did the death of this perpetrator have anything to do with this case?
I don't think so. Not in my opinion. Just one of those unfortunate facts.
But are there not some assets of this person that we should be going after to?
Kelly,
I mean,
I'm gonna have Kelly Oliver.
There is some blame. I mean, to me, there is some blame there for the guy that beat up the other guy.
And yes, Councilman Taggart, if this were a negligence case and we could allege comparative fault, that's certainly true, and that would make it easier. The problem here is it's strictly civil rights, and so even if he is to blame, even if we were to try and bring in any assets, which I don't believe he has any assets or his estate had any assets, the judgment that would go down would be joint and several liability, which means, for example, if the verdict were $500,000 and there were 3 defendants, say that it was us, Lopez, and Lieutenant Geis, the way it works is it's $500,000 joint and several. Whoever can pay it pays it. And so there's not really comparative fault, and there's not really a way for us to avoid paying it against someone who has no money, even if he were to for her to be found to blame, because it doesn't matter from a legal standpoint where that money comes from. Someone has to pay it, and we would be the defendant that would have the resources to pay it, potentially Lieutenant Geis. However, we certainly don't want our employee who didn't violate policy to lose his home or have to declare bankruptcy to try and contribute to a settlement or to a jury verdict in this case.
Are we for certain that there are no assets from this guy?
He was actually subject to deportation and he was living here in an apartment. He had no assets that we knew of. I don't know that his car was not in his name. I don't think we looked at that, but he was not even going to be, if he were released from these charges, and he did face aggravated assault charges as a result of this incident, he was not going to be able to stay in this country in any event.
All right, now you've opened up a whole other can of worms for me here. So how long, did we have knowledge that this was an illegal person?
He was subject to an ICE hold while in jail, yes. We didn't have knowledge until he was brought in and then screened through ICE after this event happened. This event happened within, I think, 30 minutes of him arriving at the jail. So he was certainly...
But at that point, we did not know he was illegal, subject to deportation or whatever.
We did not know.
I'd ask Sheriff Hall, how long when someone walks through the door before we know that there's an issue like this?
In a case like this, he was, we refer to as tapped out, which means he's got to sober up enough to be able to communicate. There would be hours of that process. The entire booking process is about 8 hours. If you're going to bond out, we would not allow you to be released until all the screening that you're asking about would have occurred. So probably hours after this event, he would have been identified, not allowed to be released until everything was cleared. But this was a very early in his arrest process. This Dressman fellow was actually asleep, we believe, when the door was open. He was placed in there, and we think just a few minutes later this outburst took off. And then so we haven't even really been able to get him to the point of the immigration hold status, which did occur, and he literally was placed in an immigration hold. Simultaneously, we pursued criminal charges for aggravated assault, which were pending on him at the time of his death.
Well, certainly this is a perfect storm of the circumstances, and I don't fault the sheriff, who I greatly admire, his staff. But, you know, here are the citizens of Nashville that are going to bear the burden of $530,000 of taxpayer money for an act by an illegal citizen or an illegal person in this country. There's something wrong, and I'm sure that we're not the ones to solve this issue, but goodness gracious, have we got problems if this is occurring?
Thank you, Councilman Tiger. Councilor Allen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was wondering if Mr. Hall could just address what has been done to ensure that such a reoccurrence couldn't happen again.
Yes, actually, the three areas that we felt like that we could have improved or could improve the situation, we've drilled holes in what is a soundproofing door, allows to hear enough, we believe. We have changed what we call a SOP, a standard operating procedure, as it relates to who you would ever place in a cell. We did not feel like we had or we should have had more of information that we needed on our own before we placed two people in the same cell. That has been addressed via policy. And then the other thing is we've lowered the tent that I'm talking about. You can see over it now. Before you couldn't see at all, and we're trying to follow the federal guidelines on there's restroom facilities in there, and you obviously can't watch from a privacy standpoint. The tent was to prevent that from happening, and we believe at the angle of the officer, where the officer station is, it prevented the entire thing from being viewed. If I could carry you down there, I'd show you. That's a perfect storm of where it actually happened. Anywhere else in that holding cell, we would have been able to see it. We've removed the tent enough to see it from the station. We've drilled holes, and we've modified our SOP.
Thank you, Councilor Allen. Councilman Garrett.
Thank you.
Seeing no other council members wishing to speak, all in favor? All opposed? Resolution passes. We're now on to RS 2013-746, sponsors Matthews, approves a renewal of an agreement between Metro Government and the Industrial Development Board for administrative, financial, and legal services. Been properly moved. Do I have a second? Properly moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? All opposed? Resolution passes. RS 2013-747, sponsors Matthews, approves a revised investment policy for the metropolitan government. Been properly moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? All opposed? Resolution passes. RS 2013-748, sponsors Matthews, accepts a donation of a print photograph valued at $750 from Mr. Kevin Arthuis. Am I saying that right? I apologize if I'm not. To the metropolitan government. Been properly moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? All opposed? Resolution passes. RS 2013-749, sponsors Bennett and Langston, approves an intergovernmental agreement between the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation and the metropolitan government pertaining to the Federal Bureau of Investigation's Interstate Photo System Facial Recognition Pilot Program. And we do have a letter from Councilor Bennett. It's been properly moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? All opposed? Resolution passes. RS 2013-750, sponsors Matthews, approves a state grant of $2,054,161 to the National Career Advancement Center to establish programs and deliver services to prepare youth workers for entry into the labor force. Been properly moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? All opposed? Resolution passes. RS 2013-751, sponsors Hunt and Matthews, authorizes the Director of Public Property Administration to exercise an option to purchase property for the purpose of expanding Cedar Hill Park at an acquisition cost of $675,000. Been properly moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, Councilman Hunt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to say I looked at this piece of property, and it's in my district, and when they told me what they had in mind for it, and it extends the Greenway, well, it's an ideal place to do that because it's right next to I-65, and it borders against the existing park. So I just think that, and there's not a lot of houses around there. I think it's an ideal situation to expand the park and put the Greenway in it. So I fully support it, and I hope everybody else will too. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Garrett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It used to be in 2 or 3 other council members here's districts that used to sit right over there. There was been in 2 or 3 other different council members. We're glad for you, Councilman. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Councilman Garrett. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? All opposed? Resolution passes. RS 2013-752, sponsors Matthews and Johnson, approves a grant of $60,600 from Greenways for Nashville to the Metro Parks Department to provide funding for the salary and benefits for the development coordinator of Greenways. Been properly moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? All opposed? Resolution passes. RS 2013-753, sponsors Matthews, approves the 3rd and 4th Amendment to a grant from Vanderbilt University to the Board of Parks and Recreation to collaborate on the Growing Right onto Wellness program by increasing the grant amount by $10,482 and extending the grant term through April 30th of 2014. Been properly moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? All opposed? Resolution passes. RS 2013-754, sponsors Matthews, approves a grant of $110,000 from the National Public Library Foundation to the National Public Library for renovations to the Green Hills Branch Library. It's been properly moved and seconded. In discussion? Councilman Stein.
Mr. Chairman, I see Mr. Oliver here. This has been hugely successful where we've done it before, and it might be, if the committee doesn't mind, just one moment for him to come forward, because this is really a terrific thing we're doing, and I assume that we're going to continue to try to expand them throughout the community.
Right. This is an exciting project where we're going to take some meeting rooms and some offices and renovate those into a teen center that'll be what we call advanced learning and participatory learning, where teenagers will actually be able to have some hands-on projects, things that we think in the long run not only help literacy but workforce development and that sort of thing. And it's very exciting. We've done that at a couple of the school libraries, and we're working on a learning lab at the main library as well. And the future libraries we're developing in Bellevue and Southeast will have similar spaces.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Oliver. Thank you, Mr. Stein. Councilman Stein, I'm sorry. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? All opposed? Resolution passes. RS 2013-755, sponsors Weiner, Matthews, and Langster, approves a contract between the Metro Board of Health and Family and Children's Services 211 to provide an access to care model for the uninsured in Davidson County using the Service Point/Call Point database system. It's been properly moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? All opposed? Resolution passes. RS 2013-756, sponsors Matthews and Potts, approves a state grant of $1,190,000 to the Metro Public Works Department for the purpose of collecting and disposing of waste tires. Been properly moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? All opposed? Resolution passes. RS 2013-757, sponsors Matthews and Potts, approves the annual fee for additional garbage and rubbish carts for residents of the Urban Services District. Been properly moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? All opposed? Resolution passes. We're now on to bills on second reading. BL 2013-487, sponsors Matthews, Weiner, and others, establishes the Barnes Fund for Affordable Housing, appropriates the initial funds for the Barnes Fund, and establishes a Metro Housing Trust Fund Commission. And there is a substitute. Mr. Cooper, could you explain the substitute?
Yes, the substitute changes the method of the grant distribution that the new commission would make, and instead of the commission making the grants directly to nonprofits, these would have to be approved by resolution of the council, which is in keeping with the state law requirements for governments making grants to nonprofits.
Okay. We have a motion and a second for the substitute. And Council Lady Allen?
I think I need to wait till the real bill. I'll ask my question in a second.
Okay. Councilman Garrett?
Mr. Chairman, we keep talking about commission, and I'm glad to see former Councilman Eric Coles here, just as to answer the question, what commission, is this something that's coming, or is it the commission?
It's the new Housing Trust Fund Commission that's being created by this ordinance.
Okay, so it's going to be coming before our Rules Committee?
Yes, the appointees will be as one member of council, and then 5 appointed by the mayor, and 1 from MDHA.
Say again, 5 the mayor, 1 from MDHA,
and 1 member of council appointed by the vice mayor.
Okay, thank you. Looking forward to that. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Councilman Garrett. Any other discussion on the substitute? Seeing none, all in favor? All opposed? Substitute passes. Now I'll entertain a motion for the bill to approval of the bill as substituted. Been properly moved and seconded. Councilor Allen.
Now I'll ask my question. Can someone explain the relationship between the Homelessness Commission and this commission, and if there's any duplication that could be streamlined?
Thank you, Council Lady, for the question. No, they're absolutely separate entities. In order for the city government to actually grant these funds and find the appropriate agencies to grant them to, the idea was that a commission was needed to have that independent body to make those decisions. So it's totally separate than the operation of the Homelessness Commission, which operates through social services.
Thank you, Councilor Allen. Any other discussion on the substitute, bill as substituted? Seeing none, all in favor? All opposed? Bill passes. And that concludes our agenda for today. Thank you.